is a bully. America is a gun. Blood, white and blue, come to America. America is a trigger. America is a pin. Come on up to America, we'll let you in. America is a giant. America is the ground. Don't worry about the sirens, they're just a sound. America is Jesus. America is the one. Come on out to America, we'll give you a gun. Somebody tell me why there's always blood in the sky. Somebody tell me why there's always blood in America. In America. In America. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies and amber waves of grain. For lonely boys with submachine guns trying to make a name. Oh, purple mountain majesty and sandy hooks rusting by the sea. America, who have you murdered lately? Somebody tell me why.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Lewis Beck. Welcome back to 343 TV and Electronic Music Essentials. I already see some of you guys hanging out in the chat. What's going on, John Kingston, The Trace, Pavel, Kyle, how you doing, man? I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting before. Mystic Moth, what up? That header by Allison was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I think my neighbors thought I had died because I screamed so loud. Simple Sam, what's up, bro? Nefertiti, what's going on? Always great to have you in here. And Salahi Tapes, I don't know if we've had you before, man. Or Salal Tapes, sorry about that, bro. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And Cadoxton, UK. That's cool, man. Never heard of that place. What's up? Philip Cronquist Morisden. Wow. That's a pretty sweet name, dude. And I guess you've been here before, so welcome back. Anyhow, for those of you that will be joining or watching this in the future, what is this? Well, this is 343 TV, and we are an extension of the music production school at 343 Labs, which is located in New York City and Berlin. And this is our online educational branch. And what we're just trying to do here on a weekly basis is give you guys content that we think is going to help you become a better producer today, right? And so specifically with my show, what I'm talking about on a weekly basis, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. is, electronic music essentials. So I'm just covering topics that I think that most electronic music producers will benefit from hearing about. And if this is your first time here, welcome. And if you dig the content at any point in the show or after it, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of really, really great content coming to you on a weekly basis. Other amazing instructors putting up tutorials and also live streaming. We got Abe Duque and John Selway, who are techno legends. And yeah, there's just a lot of really cool stuff, you know. And I would encourage you, of course, to, you know, go and check out 343labs.com, which is where you can find the classes we offer. We have everything from mixing and mastering to beginner Ableton and Logic to songwriting, composition, and many, many more things. Now, also, we do giveaways on a weekly basis of really cool music production gear and plugins. So keep an eye out in the chat. There will usually be a post coming from 343 Labs that is going to be telling you how to enter and what the prize on offer is going to be. And just having another look into the chat. What's up, Sheldon? I like the enthusiasm with all caps. And what's up, Rashane? All right, so without any further ado, today what I'm going to be talking about is some hip-hop production tricks. Now, I know I just said it's called Electronic Music Essentials. And, you know, we're trying to help out with general skills for electronic music. But I personally think that these days hip-hop is basically a branch of electronic music in many ways, particularly the production processes. It's hyper DAW focused and oriented, right? And a lot of the times you're using some really important sampling techniques. So, yeah, I think that even if you're not a hip-hop producer, you can find a lot of useful stuff that I'm going to be doing today. And today is going to be a fun day, so to speak, in that I'm just going to be producing and talking, you know. So we're just going to be making beats, a beat the whole time. So let's jump right into it. And, excuse me. Click the wrong button. I'm right here. All right. So, as always, right, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I am always keeping an eye on it to try to make sure that I'm addressing your guys' questions. Now, it's really hot in this room, and so I have this fan blowing, and I'm just going to very quickly plug it in over here. So that I can monitor the chat more easily because my phone is about to die. All right, there we go. Now we are in business. Sick. All right, and here we go. So I am starting with two very, very simple configurations. I have an 808 and a hi-hat. And let me make sure that my output is set to the right output. It is set to the right output. Beautiful. Alrighty. So, I guess we're still only looking at me. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, this is a great fan, by the way, Sheldon. Wow, Simple Sam, you already win the award for the worst joke of the day. Love it. All right, cool. All right, so I'm starting with an 808 and a hi-hat. What's going on, Cal Struckle or Kai Struckle and Enigmatic Onion? How you doing, man? All right. So I have two setups here, right? I have two samplers. One has an 808 in it, an 808 sample that is making no noise. There we go. And then one has a hi-hat sample. So for contemporary hip-hop production, really can't stress this enough. It is super useful, helpful, effective, wise, whatever you want to call it, to have some sort of sampler device set up. So even if you're not working in Ableton, right, I highly recommend that you use a sampler. In Logic, they have a sampler. In FL, I think there's some sort of sampler thing. I'm honestly not positive about that. But whatever DAW you're working in, right, really good way to get your 808s to sound, you know, professional and to have this kind of full flexibility is to make sure that you have your 808s on a tuned keyboard. This is going to make, playing melodies on your 808s a lot easier. Same thing with the hi-hats, right? So if you're doing a hi-hat pattern, right? And you want to get that really cool, right? You want to get that really cool kind of rolling sound and the pitching of the hi-hats. Easiest way to do it, right, is just to have it be in simpler. So let's just go ahead and actually start with a hi-hat pattern. So some of this stuff might seem pretty straightforward to some of you, but oh man, I'm in Ableton 10, aren't I? I meant to be in Ableton 11, but they're right next to each other. Oh well, guess you guys will just have to live. My bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down to like, well, let's actually cover a bunch of things. So instead of going down to 90 BPM maybe and producing there, what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna implement one of the best hip hop production tricks around. And that is using double time, or sorry, halftime. So I'm going to go up to 170 BPM, which might seem really fast for hip hop, right? And then what I'm going to do is I am going to produce the track half as fast as that. So I'm going to produce it like it's 85 BPM. Is that right? 75 BPM. Nope. I'm so bad at math. 85 BPM. Excuse me. Reduce it like it's 85 BPM. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a clap. I'm going to treat one bar as half a bar and 2 bars as one whole bar. Now, this is really useful because it makes it easier to it makes it easier to create like rolls, hi-hat rolls and stuff like that. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to put it onto 16th notes. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually just take a clap. Throw it onto the grid. So I'm not doing anything fancy with my clap. And I'm going to put it on the 3 instead of the 2 and the 4, right? So claps, generally speaking, go on the 2 and the 4. Now, when you're producing halftime, the way that you make it seem like halftime is by putting your clap on the 3rd quarter note. But since I'm treating 2 bars now as 1 bar, it actually still is the 2nd quarter note and the 4th quarter note, because now a half note is going to be a quarter note, right? So the way that halftime works is that every note doubles in length. So a half note is now actually the full bar. So if I turn on my metronome, right, so we hear that that's much slower sounding. Whereas if I were to take a normal approach, you would hear that it's very fast, right? Right, so that's more of a 4 on the floor approach. Yeah, I hope we will not have any crashes, and this time I will know at least in advance that I was working in 10 to begin with. So anyway, what halftime allows you to do, right, is to take a really fast BPM and make it seem like it's slower. So that's what we're doing here. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take my hi-hats and the root note of the hi-hat to, I'm just going to create this beat. So that's way too fast, right? So here's the thing that's important to first understand about working in halftime, is that a 16th note is going to be a 32nd note. What I mean by that is when you're working in halftime, what you think is a 16th note is really a 32nd note. an eighth note is actually going to be a 16th note because, again, right, we've doubled the length of everything. So instead, what I would have to do is go like this, right? So now if I want to create a roll, it's really easy, all right? Or any kind of quick thing. Right? So that's a really quick stutter. That's more of a stutter than a roll, right? But still useful. So I'm just going to use that for now as my hi-hat pattern. And in terms of now applying a roll, what I can do is I can put this onto 32nd notes. And again, now that's really 64th notes because I'm working in halftime, right? So what this allows me to do is to get really, really easily close control over getting a roll. Right? So that's like really, really quick, easy. Instead of having to get all tight, 64th notes, confusing your brain about being like, oh shit, where's the right spot to be? Quickest way to do it, right? So that's one of the benefits of working in halftime for now, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and also mute this hi-hat. Now, before I add any low end, and don't worry, I'm going to go crazy with the 808s. We're going to talk all about distortion and transient shaping and everything you want to hear about 808s, okay? But I'm just first going to build the top of my beat. So one of the reasons I'm going to do it this way is because this is probably not how most people do it. A lot of people like to build the low end first. I just like to demonstrate that there's different ways to do like everything, right? And so the thing is that no matter what genre of music you're making, right? Music is all about rhythm at the end of the day. And so really the first element that you put in is going to be the thing that dictates rhythm ultimately, right? What's the core foundation of the rhythm? So I'm just kind of shooting to do that with my hi-hats and my clap versus doing it with my kick and 808. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my kick and 808 play with the rhythm that I'm already creating. What the fuck is happening? Okay, cool. Now, the other thing, right, that I want to point out about your hi-hat situation is since I'm in simpler, right, the beauty of this is that I can pitch things up and down really easily. So the first time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an extended clip of my hi-hats. And the second time around, I'm going to have it do a little fun pitch game. To answer your question, no, Rashane, we are not only covering drums. We're just starting with drums. So what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to pitch up the very last hi-hat. So it's like we're coming around in a circle, right? For when you're working with just rhythm in general, it's a really good idea to not have one loop that just repeats constantly, right? Have some little variation that occurs, especially at the end to sort of indicate to the ear that something new is happening. right? So real fast, just because my clap is super weak, I'm just going to throw the saturator on to juice it up. All right, so let's go ahead to the 808s now. Or actually, you know what? Let's do a kick first. I want to do the kick first. Save the most fun part for last. So when you're for a hip hop kick, there's no rules, right? You can find really whatever type of kick you want. I think I'm going to make a layered kick where I'm going to take a tight 808 kick drum. Now what I'm looking for right now is just a short kick that has a little bit of low end to it. There we go. That's good. So of course, you're going to want to put a kick on the downbeat, right? Goes without saying. On your very first kick. Now, I'm also going to use this in simpler. And I'm going to have it so that we land back on the kick drum also on the downbeat on bar 2. Sorry, no, I'll go like that. Yeah, so I like this idea, right? And so what I like to do with kicks, and this is just a general thing, not only in hip-hop, but it's especially important, is to play a game where you're removing the kick at some point and having less of them than you normally would. Let's do that. Right, so having the same kick pattern across gets a little bit boring, quite frankly. And so the thing is that, as you can see, there's still synchronicity in terms of where the main kind of kicks are hitting. But adding and subtracting either from one of those spots or adding, like right here around it, and then an extra thing, is going to make the kick just feel a little bit more dynamic and bouncy. Now, this is also one of the biggest tricks in hip-hop production. I'm about to show you. So, if you're putting a kick on every downbeat of each bar, one of the great tricks, kind of secrets almost, is to withhold the kick at some point from that downbeat, and it sort of suspends things until they land back on the clap. So check out how this functions. So maybe I'm going to move it to like right there. And so what it does is it kind of just like throws off the listener a little bit, right? It's going to give them a kick in a spot that's unexpected and create more variation in the rhythm and the groove, which is what we want. Because that's what makes the music more interesting, no matter what kind of music you're making, right? Variation is the name of the game. So now let's jump into the 808s. All right, so general rule, that's not what I'm saying. No such thing as rules. Fuck rules. No rules. General principle. If you can, don't have your 808 hit at the same time as the kick. Less mixing. Literally, it's that. You just have to do less. So if you can get your 808 to literally pop off of your kick rhythmically, and not be late and out of time, it's going to make the beat literally move more. So I'm going to make each of these as long as till where the next kick is. Now, as you can hear, the kick and the 808 are, of course, overlapping at certain moments in time. Let's go up here and look at both of them. So right here in these two spots, right? And that's fine, because the kick is ultimately going to reinforce the power of the 808, right? But we just want to avoid a situation where the 808 is always falling on the kick. That's just going to create clutter in your mix, right? One of the things that's like the secret to making people want to, well, not a secret, but one of the tricks to making people move in general with all instruments, but especially with bass, is to be able to create slight texture and tonal differences, right? So if there's a low end frequency that's tight and punchy like a kick drum, right? We kind of want to juxtapose that and contrast that with something that's a little bit looser, right? A little bit like wubbier, rounder sounding, like an 808. So maybe what I'll do is also just in this part, right, slightly change up the groove. Never hurts to change up the groove, right? The more variation you can add, the better it's going to sound, the more interesting it's going to sound. I want it to go boom, 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 boom. Maybe we'll even have it do a double, right? So actually have the kick double here. So it's always important to stay elastic, right? You're not attached to anything that you're making. Yeah, that's cool with the double kick there, right? So if I take away the 808 just for a second, so we just hear what the beat has become, inspired by the 808, right? You see we have a lot more action happening here. Cool. So now let's go into how you make your 808 sound sexy as fuck, right? Which is probably what half of you are here for. In the meantime, let me also just say hello to William Mind Readers. What's going on, man? Math rock. Oh my god, yes. Sorry, guys. There is this teeny little bit of intellectuality sometimes to music, believe it or not. All right. So, there are a lot of ways to distort your 808. Now, I'm going to show you a more advanced way because fuck it. I'm going to use the Fab Filter Saturn 2. Okay. Why is this thing useful? So this is a multiband distortion plugin. What this allows me to do is to distort certain parts of the signal while keeping others intact, right? Whereas if I was to just drag on, for instance, the saturator or any other saturator plugin, I can only target the whole spectrum, which is to distort every part of the sound. And the thing is about an 808, okay? Especially when you're working with a raw one, right? And so that's what I'm working with first, is a raw 808. That's important to point out, right? This is literally from an 808 kick drum. That's how you make an 808 hip-hop sound. You take a kick drum from an 808 and you distort the shit out of it. So the thing about an 808 kick drum is that the low end is a pure fucking sine wave. It sounds beautiful. It literally doesn't get any fatter, rounder, more wubby than that, right? That shit makes your car shake all day, every day. So the thing is that when you distort that, you're turning that into a square wave more and more, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Square waves are dope. They're also really, really powerful. However, it's cool if you're able to maintain the integrity of the sine wave at lower cycles, but turn some of the higher information into a different type of a wave by distorting it, right? So that's why I'm going to go ahead and use the multiband saturator. Now, before I actually do that, before we hit that saturation, what I am also going to do is I'm going to drag on the isotope transient shaper. And this is such an important plugin if you're making hip-hop. Or if you're just working with 808s in general, right? Because let's be real, 808s have become a very integral part of contemporary music, and you don't only have to use them for hip-hop, right? So what I'm going to do is get rid of this. Just that little snap. So I'm just going to take the attack and turn it down, right? So what I've done is I've killed the transient. Subtle difference, but it's that little snap, that little click on top, right? So this is going to be helpful because, one, it's not going to create any smearing or any weird digital like phase, you know, out of correlation shit with the kick drum when it's playing, right? When they hit at the same time. So just right off the bat, let's listen to what that sounds like. Right, it's already playing nicer with the kick drum. Now the whole track is distorting because we is clipping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a limiter and just make it really loud for you guys, and also make it so that the track doesn't sound like it's going to explode. I'm not in the exploding track business, even though it's kind of dope. Right, so you can hear now the 808 is hitting at the same time as the kick, but we're not getting that weird double clicking sound. So listen what happens when I turn off the transient shaper. There's this little bit of double clicking happening, which I want to avoid. Anyhow, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the multiband saturator, into my Saturn, right? And I'm not going to touch anything below 300. So I'm going to solo this. Or maybe I'll go right there about. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nuke this area. Let's find the right distortion though. Not loving that. Okay. So let's go down then. Let's get more aggressive. Did I solo? No. All right. So you know what? I'll tell you what. For whatever reason, this is not giving me what I want. So I'm going to avoid that. And I'm actually just going to go straight to a fun saturator from SSL. That sounds pretty sick, right? That's just a nice, classic, distorted 808. Now, there are a lot of ways to make it sound even crazier. And it's really just up to you in terms of stylistically what you're going for, right? So, one thing that we could do is just add more distortion and add different types of distortion. So, a lot of the time, it can be really fun to layer distortion. So, if I take Sound Toys Decapitator, which if you watched me before, you'll know this isn't my favorite plugin, but it can still do cool things. I'm going to put it onto T mode. So a couple important things to understand about distortion, right, is it is going to do a couple of things to your 808 the harder that you hit it. One, it's going to increase the sustain, which can be really useful, right? Because what is distortion? Distortion is just when a system hits the ceiling and it can't exceed that output threshold, but it keeps trying to push into it anyway. Creates square waves, it pushes back down. It kind of is actually like limiting with harmonic artifacts, right? You can think that's what you can think of distortion as. So what you are doing is you're creating a sustain, because in a sense you're compressing the signal. And so I like to dial in my distortion so that I get some sustain, but that I don't also completely over sustain the note, right? Because then I'm going to create issues in my mix. The other thing is that once you start distorting too much, you're going to start bringing out harmonics that are not actually like musical to the root note. So listen to what I mean. If I keep distorting this too much, I'm going to start getting, the note will actually change. Right? It's, let's see it. That's the main harmonic that our ears focus on right now. Boom, 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 which is cool, but that harmonic will get swallowed if we rip this higher. Now it's like that. Now, of course, this tone knob is super useful in the decapitator. And if anything, that's, I think, one of the best things about this plugin, that you can roll off where the distortion hits, right? It's kind of like a post-distortion filter. I think. I'm pretty sure it's post-distortion. Might be pre-distortion, but I don't think that'll make any sense. So I'm going to roll it to dark. Now, the reason I'm going to do that, right, is because I could have all these fun high harmonics in here, but the thing is that's going to get in the way of where the hi-hats sit, and also, more importantly, where the vocal is going to sit. Right? If we look at spectrum, right, we're getting a lot of harmonics in this area right now, which is where the voice is really going to be sitting. So this just decreases the intensity of those harmonics. We lose this area a little bit more, which is good. So that's cool. Now, here's one thing that's happening, right? Is because we've increased the sustain, the kick is getting eaten completely. So we are going to sidechain the 808 to the kick. Now here's something that's really important, okay? I can't stress this enough. If you are using sidechain in any part of music production, but you're using it to the ducking effect, right? If you're using a sidechain configuration of a compressor to duck a sound, you have to put it at the end of the chain. It has to be the last thing on the whole channel. Otherwise, what you're doing is if I were to go like this, let's say I start out, I'm like, oh, I want to sidechain my, my 808 to my kick. Okay. Well, then all of this stuff that you're doing after, right, is affecting the sidechain. So if I put distortion after the sidechain, I'm basically undoing the good work that the sidechain would have been doing, right? So I want to make sure that if I'm sidechaining, I always put it at the end of my processing chain. The only thing that maybe you would put after would be a gain utility. So input from the kick. Now the way I have the same, I set up sidechaining the identical way every single time. I just go 6-to-1 ratio, my attack at 0.5 milliseconds, and my release, I just leave it basically wherever it is, right? Maybe for the kick, because I want to just have enough time to get out of the way, a little bit longer. And then I'm just going to duck it till I hear the ducking. I'm going to duck it until I feel the kick come through, right? Alright, now I'm going to show you one trick, and I'm going to break the rule that I literally just said, so sorry. But one thing that can happen, right, with a sustained 808 that's sidechaining off of something where the source that it's sidechaining off of doesn't come in for a long time, right, is that the volume of the 808 is going to surge. Right there, right? Which is going to become a problem. So what I actually am going to do is I'm going to take a multi-band compressor, because it's only really the low part that's surging super hard, right? I like the high harmonics to surge. Let the high harmonics distortion cut through, because that means on the laptop it's going to actually sound like that's a ridiculous. Wow, Simple Sam coming in with the with the puns today, man. Loving it. But yeah, so those high harmonics are going to make it sound like it's getting louder on a laptop, which is cool, and in your headphones, right? So those dynamics are cool. But this low-end shit that's happening, I want to avoid. So it's this area right here. Right, you can see it right down here. That happens. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to right there, you can hear the volume surge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my attack to 0%, meaning the fastest attack possible. I'm going to set my ratio to 100 to 1. Set my knee to hard. Set my look ahead to 20. So most amount of look ahead possible, highest ratio possible, so it's a limiter. Hard knee, so that it just fucking grabs it the second it hits. And I'm going to make my ratio, or my range rather, just -2. I don't actually need to reduce this that much. It's just surging by like a decibel or two, right? And then what I'll do is I'll find the spot where it's happening, threshold-wise. Alright, so this is not doing what I want it to. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted. So right there. Right there where we hear the surge and the woo, all I'm looking to do is make the compressor cut that down. So all that I'm doing is I'm taming the sidechain, right? It's the only reason to do anything after the sidechain. Any processing on the tone, I'm going to do before, right? Maybe you need a little dynamic processing after the sidechain just to control it. Now, I'm going to see if I can get it to reduce even harder by turning the range down. Boom, I'm loving this. Boom, I love that. So all that it's doing is it's grabbing the surge and making it not overwhelm the rest of the track, right? That's going to be really important for the mix process. And so I'm just doing that early in advance. Now, even though I made room for my kick, right, with my sidechain, I can still make my kick more powerful and reinforce it more, right? A lot of ways to do that. One thing I love to do, especially for a hip-hop track, just to dirty it up a little bit, is to use some saturation directly on the kick. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use that SSL saturator again, just because I think it sounds really clean. Ever choose to use a dynamic EQ instead of sidechaining? Can you explain to me why you would do that? So you mean you would set up the dynamic EQ to duck where the kick is? Is that what you mean, Brandon Vasquez? Because that's a cool idea, if in fact that's what you're saying. So that little bit of distortion, that little bit of solidity. Now, of course, it's making it louder, right? Let's not. And it's also increasing the sustain again on that low end, right? Turn the gain down so we can match where it is. Match it, we can still hear that it's more powerful, right? Now that said, I'm still just going to turn up the kick a little. Now when I'm getting my kick balanced, I like to only focus on the low part of the kick. I don't worry about the transient. Yeah, exactly. So the kick is getting more clicky. So I'm going to fix the click because I don't like it to be that clicky. But I like what I got out of the low end from that. So what I would just do here now is I would come on in and I would scoop out some of that. Now, just for shits, I'm going to use this SSL channel strip to do that. because why not? Let's just stick with SSL. So that's happening at about 1.5. Maybe a little lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that out. There we go. So what's cool about getting too much transient tonally is that I can now get back as much as I want. Right about there is nice. I like that. And maybe what I could do is just throw a little love on top. Give a little bit of that crispiness, that snap, right? So that's a really nice kick now. Really warm, really clean, cuts through. Now, to just completely solidify that kick in the mix, right? I can use a return track, and I can use a, let's just keep it all in the family here. I'm going to use the SSL yet again. Or, you know what? No. There's another track that I love, another compressor I love to use. So I'm going to do parallel compression on the kick. So it's called NYC compression for short. So I'm just going to call this NYC kick just so I can more easily locate it in my project. So parallel compression, New York City compression, is one of the secrets to hip-hop production. Like, the secrets. You got to have it. So my favorite parallel compressor to use for parallel compression these days, you probably saw me do this last week or something. I've done it before, is the FG Stress, which is the distressor emulation from Slate. I think it just sounds insane when you drive it hard. So what I'm doing is I'm choosing to have a really long release, because what I want to do is I don't really care about the transient cutting through. The transient cuts through. What I actually want to make sure is that the meat of it comes through. And so the longer release that I use, the more that it actually kills the transient. So I'm just getting a warmer kick sound. That first time it happens, we'll get that result, which sucks, but that's without it. And with it, it just makes it hard as iron. And then you just, blend it in so it's not too loud. Right, so that's how you get like the most reinforced kick that you can. All you need is one round of it. Now, same thing for the clap. We want that clap to be hard as iron as well. And so what I'm going to do is exact same configuration on the clap. Parallel compression for the clap. Now the thing is you might notice I'm making advanced mixing decisions before I've even produced the track, right? Well, when it comes to hip-hop, the whole thing is about the drums. So if you get your drums sounding fire before you even get anything else going, then you're winning. So the key here is I want to get my attack setting to be fast enough that it creates a snap, but slow enough that it allows the transient through. Now, I want to make this snap harder, so I'm actually going to drive the input of the compressor harder. No. Not fully giving me what I want. Well, there's a little secret I can do where I could take a gate before the compressor. So it only detects the transient in the compression. And what that allows me to do is get a really only target the transient in the compression, and I can hit it harder and shape it a little bit more. So here how that's kind of flappy, and this gives me that sharpness. So that's what I want, because that's the thing that's going to make the clap seem like it cuts through. Reinforcement. Now, another thing that's fun for like a clap that feels really like, I don't know, a little fake sounding, right? Like that, or just a little, just doesn't quite sound as gooey as it could, is just crank a tape saturation emulation into it. And I'll add a little bit of low end chunk and roll off some of the high end. Like right about there. Anyway, so let's get moving now. Onto maybe some chords. So we can get a little musical with this beyond just the rhythm. I'm going to go ahead and make some chords in analog. So first I got to find my root note, of course, right? So this is interesting because it seems like the kick, or the 808 rather, is not tuned to a specific note. So there's a couple ways around this. One thing that I could do is I could freeze and flatten the 808. All right. I can start playing my analog, my synth, right? And so yeah, it looks like it was a whole kind of, it was in this awkward half of a half step in between something, right? So all that I'm doing is now I'm tuning down the 808. So if you're finding like, oh shit, I can't get my 808 to be in tune, well, one way to do that is just freeze and flatten it. And you can also do this much earlier in the process, right? I already did some like mixing shit on it, but you can freeze and flatten it to then just transpose it down so that it, or up or wherever it needs to go, so that it sounds nice, right? So now let's just take a chord, and we're at an A. Now, I am, in general, a person who tends towards chiller music. So I'm just going to make some chill chords. That's just my personal taste. Okay, cool. So let's throw on some chords, starting from a G. Now, I honestly just end up drawing chords on the grid so much. So this is a minor 7th chord, right? I like that. So maybe what I'll do is there's this pause here, right, to make the whole beat groove together. I'll pause the chords until the 808 also comes in, right? So there's that little pause. I'm glad you like it, Nefertiti. And so it's always important, don't just slap your chords on, especially if you're doing sustained chords, block chords like this. Make sure that they are related to the beat, right? So if the rhythm is changing, make sure that the rhythm of when the chord starts, because that's the only rhythm that's happening in the chord, right, is going to happen. Yeah, sorry. So enigmatic onion, parallel compression is when you take a dry signal. It doesn't mean there isn't compression on it. You just take one track, you send it to a return track, and then on that track, you compress the shit out of it. Right, so I'm getting 26 decibels of gain reduction. And so what you do is you then blend in the hyper compressed signal into the original signal. And the whole point is that you're emphasizing the transient, usually, of the thing that is being parallel compressed so that it cuts through. So it's just a way to create another kind of layer for your transient in the track without having to get all crazy and hyper compressy on the track itself. Hope that makes sense. Cool. So maybe in terms of sound design, you know, just for your chords, a little bit of LFO modulation to the filter, cutoff never hurt. Modulation over the course of 2 bars. So of course, if you're using chords, and with hip hop, a lot of times, you know, a lot of your important information is going to be down the middle, right? Take the chords and put them wide. Easiest way to do that is to put on the delay, turn off the sync, turn off of the link. It's a poem right there. And then you're going to turn these both to 0, turn your dry wet up to 100, turn your feedback all the way down. And then you're just going to delay one side. And then it just jumps out wide. And then if you really want to just make a lot of room, what you can do is whenever you have these kind of, you know, cloud, these really fluffy chords, is to put your EQ on mid-side mode and only cut out the middle and just high pass the middle. Yes, this is the Haas effect. Very good, William. Senior mind readers. That's what it is. Now, another great trick, and this is just not only hip-hop, right? This is just something that is useful for production in general, is when you're using sustained chords, right? You're really missing an opportunity to have your chords play some sort of rhythmic role, right? So if I were to just simply duplicate this track and now take all of the chords and shorten them, so they're just a little bit of a stab. Shorten them even more. So really just a stab. and now process the, yeah, William, that is the Haas effect. And then process, kind of sound design these chord stabs to be stabs, right? Literally playing the exact same chords. So one thing that's really fun now is you can take the delay, and I'm gonna make it go because my hi-hats are doing that. They're already doing that pattern, right? That's what my hi-hats are doing. So I'm gonna make my chords sort of blend in with that pattern, with that groove, right? At all points in time, you should be trying to make your track one seamless rhythm, right? That's what's gonna make your track really sound good. So let's go back to time mode. So I think that's gonna be 6. Let's see. Oh, I'm wrong. There we go. Okay. So, in terms of coming back to the root cause of this video, right, of today's topic, one great trick for producing hip-hop is to make your, if you're using chord stabs or chords at all, is to use a little delay that is going to sort of like layer in with the other rhythm, right? So if I was doing a faster rhythm, I could go. Now, chords, leads, any melodic element is going to be a great opportunity in a hip-hop production to use reverb, because on your drums, you're generally not really going to want to use reverb. You just want that stuff to be like straight in your face. So I'm going to be able to send it to some reverb here. And a great trick for in rhythmic-based music for using reverb is to take the number 60,000, which is the number of milliseconds in a minute, and divide that by your BPM, which is 170, although really we're using 75, so I'm going to do 75. No, 85, sorry. Bad at math again. So that gives me 705 milliseconds. That gives me my quarter note value in pre-delay in time, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now divide that by 4 to give me 16th notes, divide that by 4 again to give me 64th notes. So now 44.1 milliseconds of pre-delay is going to give me a rhythmic pre-delay on my reverb. Now the reverb doesn't have to be something really obvious, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it wide, and I'm going to make it short, actually. So it's out there. Might even take out some of the high frequencies. So it just adds more warmth and width to the beat. Also, of course, the beauty of having the 2 chords is you don't have to have this one running at all times. You don't even have to have both of them running at all times, right? You can have the other one off. And if you want to have it, the whole thing be more subtle, And then in terms of writing a melody, you know, that's just really up to you. There's no secret for specifically hip-hop based stuff with a melody. All right? Now let's take out the chords for a sec. Yeah, so I think that's sounding nice. I'm into that. So yeah, I mean, I hope that you know, I gave you guys a few tricks today that you find helpful to apply in your productions, and also find helpful, you know, whether they are hip hop productions or otherwise. I'm gonna go ahead and call it right there, as I do have some other things I must attend to today, unfortunately. I will, of course, be watching Liverpool playing at 3:15 p.m. today, and if I'm being honest, the only reason I'm leaving is so I can go and sacrifice, you know, make sacrifices to the gods to have Liverpool win, because that would really make my day, because the crypto markets crashed like crazy. All right, anyhow, I really appreciate you guys always Let's restart with that. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and it was great to see a lot of you here who are here on a regular basis, and also to see some very new names. And so to those new names, I hope that you guys come back. I hope you dug the content, and if so, please hit that subscribe button, because we got tons of great content coming at you on a weekly basis. Now, I would be remiss to not mention that this week's giveaway is a free 343 Pro session. And so what the 343 Pro sessions are is where we have professional producers come in and we talk to them about their process. A lot of the times they'll break down one of their own tracks, and it's just really, always cool to hear someone who's doing it for a living, right, and out there touring the world and whatever, talk to you about how their process works. So I'd highly encourage you to sign up for that giveaway. And of course, as always, if you are feeling like you really want to take your production to the next level, please go to the 343labs.com website and sign up for a class. We'd love to see you, whether it be online or in person. And of course, that is now possible. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Peace.